Yes, we're back on the 67 Hail Hail channel on YouTube. I am Hamish once again coming from his house during lockdown, but thankfully we've got something to celebrate because after weeks and weeks of chat, statements and furore from one side of Glasgow and one side of Edinburgh, we have been crowned champions of the Scottish Premiership for the 9th successive season. It's a magical triumph, a history-making triumph, but I thought we'd go into a bit on this video about why it has undoubtedly been dampened a little bit by everything that's gone on and why perhaps the media aren't reporting a narrative that has developed that certainly many Celtic fans I've been talking to feel. But before we get into all of that, I'll just put out our usual shout on the channel. If you wouldn't mind subscribing if you've not yet managed to do so, it'll take literally 3, 4 or 5 seconds. If you just go out the video, pause it now and click that subscribe button as well as the bell. We would really appreciate that. We're also on Twitter. We are 67 Hail Hail there. Facebook, you can just search the same there. And on 67hailhail.com as well if you want to read some of the writers, what they have to say on what's going on at the moment. We'd really appreciate all the support in there. We have been totally bowled over during lockdown that you guys and girls are continuing to watch the stuff even though we're not having our normal kind of debate. We're just almost filling a gap at the moment, but thankfully today we've got something positive to talk about after all the turmoil off the pitch, off or even away from football over the last 2 months or so. Celtic are champions yet again, as we say. Neil Lennon's got the title in his first full season back at the club. Scott Brown may not be lifting said trophy for a little while yet, perhaps even next season, who knows, next year before he lifts it, certainly in front of fans. But we are champions again, and boy does it feel good. There has been a lot of noise from a select few clubs in Scotland who feel harshly treated by the fact that the league has been called as it is. Now, these tend to be the teams who haven't performed to their expectations this season. You know, Partick Thistle sitting bottom of the championship, who, by the way, I have a bit of sympathy for, given that they were only 2 points behind with a game in hand. Hearts less sympathy for, although they could still have caught 11th place or even 10th place. And Rangers as well are another team who clearly haven't met their target this season. They wanted to win the league, and because the coronavirus pandemic has happened and it's basically completely written off their chances for no fault of the other teams, by the way, obviously, they feel pretty hard done by and they've been making a lot of noise about it. Now, that noise won't take away any of the hysteria that's felt by Celtic fans at the moment. They'll be celebrating around the country, over in Ireland where we have such a big support, around the world at this fantastic triumph, and rightly so. But even, you know, the most ardent of Celtic fans must admit that it's not quite the same as winning the title on the pitch. Now, that's not to suggest that the title is tainted in any way, as some fans would like to point out. Trying to devalue our title by suggesting that it's tainted really only comes from jealous morons from fans of other clubs. It suggests that Celtic have done something wrong, much like the years that are called tainted when Rangers were out of the First Division. It suggests that Celtic have done something to deserve having their title tainted. The truth is that tainted titles like Lance Armstrong's in Tour de France, or even Juventus and some other Serie A teams in the early 21st century, only really happen when they've done something wrong, like cheating, for example. So, you know, there's a certain irony there in Scotland. This title is deserved just as any of the previous 8 or the previous 50 in our history, although we must admit that it doesn't feel just the same as it has in the past. Our record equalling 9th title in a row should have been celebrated more than most in our recent history, although we must admit that COVID-19 has robbed us of that a little, even though celebrations will be going on as I speak at the moment. That's the narrative that the Scottish media perhaps aren't putting out there that they should be, that Celtic fans and Celtic as a club are actually the ones that are probably more hard done by than most. When Rangers won the league in December, as Scott Brown jokingly said earlier on in the week, when they beat us at Parkhead to move 2 points behind, they really felt there was a title race on. But just 10 weeks later, when the Scottish Premiership was abruptly halted due to coronavirus, we were 13 clear, an 11-point swing, and with 8 more games to go in the top flight, we could probably say that we would have won it by more, possibly even 20 points. That's not out with the realms of possibility, given that there was 2 more derbies to be played, and given that we won the league by just 9 points in each of the last 2 seasons, that would represent a huge title win. The Celtic support have been robbed the chance to see the team almost certainly waltz to a title by, who knows, 15, 20 points. The chance to win the league, that celebration day, as well as a completely separate day when we actually got to lift the trophy. They've been robbed of bus parades like we've seen in previous years. They've been robbed, most importantly perhaps, of seeing their team possibly winning a fourth consecutive treble. Although it is important to add that the Scottish Cup is still likely to be played to a finish at some point, possibly even in front of fans in the year 2021. We've had to miss out on the very public celebrations that we've got used to around this time of year in previous years due to lockdown, and perhaps it's fair to say that some other rival supporters are maybe a little bit glad of the isolation at the moment. Amid all of that ire, very little attention has been paid to ourselves as well as the other three SPFL League champions. That's Dundee United, Raith Rovers and Cove Rangers. And given that United and Cove Rangers both won their titles by very similar margins to ourselves, that doesn't seem quite right. So the major global situation that we still find ourselves right in the midst of, and it undoubtedly goes beyond the realms of football, and it will undoubtedly dampen our title celebrations a little bit, even if we try to pretend otherwise. Some fans out there may question why such a situation couldn't have happened during titles number 4 and 5, for example, when things were a little bit duller and more simple. But we should probably count our blessings that it's not happening this time next year, when we will almost certainly be going for a history-breaking 10 in a row. Hopefully by then football will be back, and more importantly there'll be fans there at Celtic Park to watch it as we go for that history-breaking 10th title in a row. So well done Celtic on 9 in a row, another title. Enjoy the celebration, obviously stay at home and stay safe while you're doing that. We'll be doing likewise here on 67 Hail Hail. Subscribe if you've not yet managed, and we'll be back next week when we're looking at the end of season awards with a special.